let them cultivate it and make it boom, make it into a boom town.
Yeah.
Like they used to, from the movies that I used to see, people would just start things and they would start from scratch and they would build, and they were building and building into industry.
Yeah, yeah. So Henry George gets into these things, and I mentioned a few of them. Well, no, I was agreeing with what you were saying, but the idea that people are taking something away from us, but you're saying, well, no, they're going there, and it's not a matter of, you know, remember that argument about there's a wages fund, so if a foreigner builds something and trades it, then that's less money. So that's an example of a lie that's used to cover for something else. So, but I did want to respond to you know, immigration policy, but it's only in terms of the population Malthus kind of thing, because I think that's the importance of keeping things on track within the Progress of Poverty book. So we're talking about population. So we're not overpopulated because through our intellect and our entrepreneurial spirit, we can cover those kind of things where we bump up to some kind of limit. So if you think about what's really going on, we didn't hear anything about Muslim immigrants until after the 9/11 and then that terrible mistake of invading Iraq and doing something in Afghanistan for some reason that, you know, England knew very well, you know, hopeless to go into Afghanistan. Russia knew that it was hopeless to go in Afghanistan. Why we didn't learn something from that. So what you're seeing is immigrants, especially for Europe, they all came because of this crazy stuff in Iraq and Syria, and we kind of know what's, you know, behind the Syria thing is that there's a desire to remake the Middle East toward somebody's vision of what it should be. You know, the people that didn't want to see Iran there or Assad there, you know. So I guess I didn't want to get into that politics, but it's the idea that where did the immigrants come from? They came from these war-torn areas, and you know, what is our policy for peace and development? We really didn't have that in mind post 9/11. It's like Saddam had no, you know, there was no pretense for why we did that. So there was something on the agenda, so that balled into something. So then we had the immigrant. So in the Mexico situation, in the South America, Central America, you have the economy being torn apart because of the free trade agreements, where what really should be going on is, rather than making cheap stuff for people in the United States to buy at Walmart, what needs to happen is that wealth to be circulated to have healthy communities. And I think that's, I guess we'll probably get that into a course later on, but this whole idea that trade policy is a main driver for local economy is kind of totally nuts, because you have to have a vibrant city-state nation before you even consider what the effects of trade is going to be. So the best way to have immigrants jumping over the wall or whatever would be to develop those countries, like in Mexico and Latin America, to where they'd say, well, we got it good here. So if they don't have it good, they're going to come to the United States. So I don't know whether Trump's negotiation with the Mexican president is going to work, but apparently it's a socialist president of Mexico agreeing with Trump to do something different with NAFTA. And if it's to improve the working conditions in Mexico, I think that's one of the ways of solving that problem. But I think you're right that there could be an absorption of immigrants into, you know, Wyoming or even Peoria from that matter. But I wanted to keep the discussion within the Progress of Poverty.
Well, I got this vision because as you were talking, that's what it just that came to me while you were explaining the Malthusian theory.
Yeah.
So I don't want to go off track. It's just that that's what happened.
So we got a question back there.
Here it is.
Because I've already asked a question. So going back to my first question, I guess this is a follow-up, and you were saying you spoke about the corruption of economics, right? So since there has been a corruption of economics and this neoliberal school of thought has sort of been embraced at all ranks, how does that hold of people's thinking get undone? Because essentially, it's our representatives who are complicit in this unequal, redistribution of wealth upward. With the rezoning, I've heard many, essentially, in so many words, say rezoning is the only tool we have.
We talking about the Georges, and that's the only tool we have is land value capture? Is that what you're talking about?
Well, what I'm saying is that many do believe this neoliberal model. They believe in it. They think that's the only thing that will work.
Yeah.
So how do you undo that hold on people's minds?
Yeah. Well, the time to do it is when there's the next financial crisis, and to stand firm that we're not going to do what we did the last time. So there needs to be a lot of things happening, like right now when things are relatively calm, so that when the crisis happens, we've got a voice that is a viable solution. So we're actually not doing our job enough if we're not out, being more visible and potent, I suppose. I'm hoping that changes, and there's events coming up where we can promote what we're trying to do. While you're talking about that, I was thinking about so you're talking about neoliberal. Okay, so everybody familiar with the Soviet Union and the Iron Curtain dropping. So what happened in Russia and East Europe was a pretty firm embrace of the neoliberal model, which ended up not working so well in Russia, and a few people gathering a lot of wealth, and it really wasn't a good situation. You notice that that didn't happen in China. They maintained pretty well the control. So they have communism in spite of the capitalist methods that they've got there. But so there's a lot of attempts to doing free market, neoliberal solutions in there, and they didn't quite work. There was efforts to, a lot of Georgists went into South Africa during the 90s to try to get it to a land value system, and didn't quite work. There was a lot of money that was put and didn't succeed. So I guess by having the courses that we do, we're hoping that we train enough people who will be in the right places to raise the hand and say, well, I don't agree with what you just said. I'm studying Henry George, and there's a viable solution that's been available for 140 years, and this is what we should do. This always comes up when I watch a variety of stations on TV, and almost every day on the Fox channel, there'll be somebody saying that, the problem with the socialists is that they want all these things, but they don't explain where the money comes from. So, I want to kick the TV and say, of course the money would come from the land value capture, and if we switched the rent to paying for the infrastructure, that's where the money would come from. So that was kind of like responding to what you said. So how we go about it. I guess we have to have a groundswell, and maybe Ramon is if we could multiply Ramon like by 1,000, I think we'd be marching down Fifth Avenue toward City Hall or wherever it is. With something. We do have to have a strategy though, and we have to have certain tactics. It's always good to link electoral politics with what we're trying to say. I think that it's a good thing that the Democratic Party is turning left, because things open up. You know, under the Hillary umbrella, would we ever get an audience to talk about land value capture? But then we got Alexandria talking about socialism. And, you know, our pitch is that, well, that's superfluous. You know, if you understand what Henry George is all about, you get that and more. And in fact, it could be quite easy, because we have an answer to where the money comes from. And it's not from necessarily rich people. It's people who are absconding the community wealth. So I don't know if that explained that.
I mean, my voice carries, so I mean.
I'm sorry?
Hello?
Yeah, hit the top of
Doesn't
it.
carry.
Hello? Now do you?
No.
Now do you?
Yeah.
This fellow that came out with a book, was on a couple of shows, and his name is Nathan Schneider. He's ripping off Richard Wolff with this
Richard
worker cooperative idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
and he, you know, I just hate people that, you know, cash in on other people's ideas. That something about it just burns me up. But anyway, he's acting like it's his notion, and he's from Occupy Wall Street and blah, blah, blah. But Richard Wolff has been talking about that notion of worker cooperatives for like well over a decade. But my point is, how does the worker cooperative idea size up with Henry George?
Well, I guess I'm going to have to pass to Ibrahima. I've attended Richard Wolff. He has a gathering over by Washington Park. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So you can go. You can't ask any questions. That's the problem. That's why I stopped going over there. Is that he'd go through this for like 2 hours, and everybody's leaving. It's like, well, you know, that's not acceptable. I mean, you know, he's not God. He's not Moses. You know, he should get some feedback. But I get into a lot of detail about cooperatives when I talk about Eleanor Ostrom, because I see her idea of a common pool resource management system to be the resource that we've been talking about, the land value capture, could be seen as a common pool resource. And if we think about it that way, we can say throughout history and cultures and geography, people have figured out how to share common pool resources. So why don't we just declare that the land value capture that we want to get is a common pool resource. So then we have a guide on how to create a common pool resource. You know, there's 8 principles for when they're successful, and I identified the change factors from where we are to getting to a common pool resource. So we've got the science behind us. I think we just need to be creative on creating that cooperative. But I guess I'm going to turn it over to Ibrahima on Richard Wolff, but the cooperatives is a good idea, but I'm afraid that what Richard Wolff is getting at is like on a more lower level solution, and then, you know, so I think you probably get into first principles. You know, Henry George is big about if you don't do first principles, you know, you're spitting in the wind. So.
Yes, by the way, Richard Wolff is offering very, I think 2 series of courses. I have the dates. Ron called me, informed me. It's not free. It's 4 hours. I think this Sunday and another Sunday. But I'm going to give you the dates. If maybe you get a chance to ask questions. It's going to be a course.
Oh, it's not free.
It's not free. It's $99 if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, I would demand to ask questions if I can.
If you pay, of course, you should be able to. So I attended a couple of his sessions. I think it was like many years ago, before I even joined the Henry George School. So what I gather from his idea of workers' cooperatives, which more or less highlights the experience of a city in Spain called Mondragon. Okay? So here is a situation where you have an entire firm that is owned by workers. So how do you tie that to George? Not very sure, because George is thinking as a macroeconomist. He's looking at the economy in general, he's not looking at firms. So the idea for him to highlight the Mondragon experience is, take for example the situation of corporations in the US, okay, which are run by people who went to business schools in this country. And the whole idea is, the boards of directors are the people who make the key decisions. Okay? They are the ones who decide what to produce, when to produce, where to produce it. They even decide whether the firm should move out of the US and go to China. So the workers, who are the people who really run the functions of the business, their ideas or their opinions don't really matter. So he thought the workers' cooperative is in line with that idea that he calls democracy at work. Because it allows the majority, the silent majority that does the job, to be part of the decision-making process. So that way he thinks capitalism can be tamed in such a way it serves the masses, rather than the few guys at the board who decide to take out all the equipments and then ship them to China and start producing them.
So it's an occasional getting together of the people who run and have influence to say, here's our strategy for whatever we're building, where to sell it, so that you can get more input and have it more equitable rather than, the few grabbing the
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
So in general, we're not opposed to that as a Georgist organization. We wouldn't, for example, endorse worker cooperatives because it's really not key to our mission. Is that the way to describe it?
I wouldn't say so, as long as it doesn't contradict George's basic principle that justice should be the guiding principles when it comes to dividing the wealth. I see no problem.
Yeah.
George is not the kind of guy who is for regulation or against regulation. You regulate when something belongs to the public. You make sure whatever belongs to the public goes to the public. And you make sure whatever is the result of somebody's efforts, he gets it, and he gets it fully, without restriction or even without suggestions.
Yeah. So it's the removal of the inequality so you can allow the equality to take care of it.
Exactly. And George is pro-wealth. He doesn't say that nobody should be allowed to amass wealth. You can do it, go ahead. But just make sure you are not robbing somebody, you are not taking it away from the public purse.
Yeah.
That's all he's saying.
Yeah.
So
So that addressed your concern about the worker cooperatives and where we stand?
Are you familiar with the Everything for Everyone book you wrote?
Not,
His name is Nathan Schneider. He's from the Occupy Wall Street.
okay. Any additional questions?
Everything for everyone?
Everything for everyone.
So,
Nathan Schneider.
Nathan Schneider.
so Ibrahim, you gave me a thumbs up. What was that about? We got the YouTube?
What is about?
It's,
Okay, yeah. The live streaming that we were trying to do, it did not broadcast, but it recorded everything you were saying. So we have it. We don't have to redo it.
okay, so we'll.
Okay, yeah.
So I guess maybe that's important because we got the first class here.
Sure.
So I think we're gonna redo the first class. I guess I'm gonna read my notes. So Saturday we'll do that. But going forward, do you think maybe the Zoom broadcast would be the way to go?
Yeah, we should probably look into the Zoom.
Okay, why don't we practice that on Saturday?
No problem.
Okay.
Sure.
Now, you mentioned that the last 6 chapters, like part 2, is going to be done in the spring. Why delay that much? I think we should go sequentially and finish it by Christmas, let's say, or by December.
Well, I think what we were trying to do, and this is politically, was to show of success on doing the first one. And I guess I'm taking up more time on doing the first half of the book, more than I would if we had done week after week. So I'm skipping some weeks. I think there's 3 skips, just so that we're allowing people time to read the book and study it. So whether that is a smart thing to do, I guess we'll have to wait, but it was just a decision.
Yeah, I think this class, the way I understand it, because it's, you know, and you should say, because the school hasn't taught Henry George for the past 6 years. I mean, from the book.
Yeah.
And so it's a good, again, I love hearing you speak. I mean, I come to, but the point of this class would not be to have another kind of like a lecture on George, on what somebody thinks about George, but actually to go in the book, but actually read the book in class. So we all have a common hearing of the book.
Yeah.
That's
one way.
To me, that's the first way that the Henry George School should be teaching Henry George. That's the first way. If you don't do this, there is no need for the Henry George School. Because other things we can do in the coffee shops and in other places. That's my take. That's what I expected to see from the book. And I think all of us should have the book. We should buy it, not just take it for free, because that's not fair to the laborer that wrote the book. Okay. So, and I think we should practice those principles ourselves here in this small community, and then that's going to actually project and magnify outside of this, of this building.
So we should all have.
So I see Ibrahim are bringing down books. Anybody need?
I give you 5 on that.
I was reading on the book guide.
Yeah, I had considered. No, I considered having the.
And also the original book, not the abridged. The abridged version. The abridged version, which is I think the one that you are holding. That's the abridged. Don't use that. It has misleading points. And in the attempt to make the English, let's say 21st century, they actually obfuscated points. I know that firsthand. So I would say, trust the thick volume, the original one.
It takes a little bit more time to read the original.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, but
It takes you more time to try to understand what this guy is trying to simplify, because it actually complicates things. So it's like you spend actually more time to understand the abridged version than actually to get it from the original.
so here we got copies of
We should
the.
all have the book. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we got
Yes.
the.
Yes. Not only have it, but also buy it.
Yeah.
Buy it.
See, and so here's another reason.
Read this book after.
I think you're correct.
So here's another
It's
reason.
right here. I have it.
There's another reason for having the original book and carry it with you. Because at first people say, what is that guy, a Bible thumper? And then he looks at the cover and it's like Henry George. So then you can start this conversation. So
Great.
I like to carry it around.
Wow, really?
You sit down, you don't have to go to.
Do you have the science of political economy?
I explain everything.
That's the
It's brilliant.
fabulous.
So I think Yanni brings up,
Nonsense.
Really, really.
It's just brilliant.
I think Yanni brings up a good point that the way this course was taught was to go around and read passages. I chose not to do that, but to have the passages exactly the way he wrote them, so that you could read the slides before the presentation. But I'm encouraging people to read the book.
But that's exactly what I thought, and I think I told you. The
What's that?
initial idea is to have
Read the book.
a Bible reading class, basically.
Okay.
No, we should discuss, but you see, now by giving us the slide in the beginning, you are making us lazy students.
Well,
Because you choose everything, which is good. So there is nothing against you, actually it's for you, actually I'm praising what you did. But that should be done at the end of the class. Having gone through the reading, then you do the synopsis of it or the digested version.
Now I'm gonna tell you why he did the slides.
No, for his first class, it's great that he did it
No,
because
I know, but listen to me. The reason why he did the slides, because he wanted people to see the live stream. That's the whole reason.
To do what?
Because of the live stream. If you were not doing the live stream, we would not have posted the slides.
Not doing the what?
We would not have posted the slides if you were not doing the live stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. The live stream, the YouTube live stream. But that is the point. Sometimes you cannot have everything perfectly. So you have to be really know what is your focus and then put your energy into that. You cannot have a very good event live and expect it to be fabulous for people who are watching.
for the first class, this was great in all fronts, besides that the live stream did not go through. Otherwise, it was great
Yeah.
for the first class. The first class should be like that. However, the next 5 classes should be hard labor. We should do the labor
Reading and
of reading, thinking, connecting, because it's really a brilliant book, which is, and also brilliant English too.
How do you reconcile that method for people who are not sitting in the class and watching live?
For people who do it simultaneously,
How do you do that? Because that's my point.
well,
Make sure you satisfy those who are sitting and reading page by page and have the same scene being displayed live and expect those to be on the same level of understanding as those who are there.
the way you...
I would think it's impossible.
No, it is. I'll tell you how. Because if we do the readings, if they have the online version, now the one thing is that you have to make sure that this, like the original version, is the one that we have, that you can flip online, so they can see the exact reading that we are doing.
How do you flip that online? You gotta grab the camera and see
No, the PDF. You can have it as a PDF. No, you can have it as a PDF. But with the exact pagination, because the digital versions, it's the same text, but not similar pagination, so it's hard to coordinate.
The PDF that you are talking about will not be able to do that. You do that with the Kindle version that has a flipping function. That's in some way you can find a way. But the PDF that we have, how do you think that?
If you scan this,
Do you have
like
any
the
questions?
2-on-1,
No, we have a scan.
but this one,
Bashar, do you have any questions?
but is that
right
PDF
here, but
the
I
exact
probably lost
images
it
of
next to
the
next
pages,
class.
or somebody took the text and they
probably
reproduced
lost
in
them in the
Microsoft
next
Word,
class.
and they reproduced the entire text.
I said I do have a few questions, but I'll probably ask them in the next class.
Okay.
No, but that was did a very good job there.
So then if somebody says, oh, I'm reading
But I
page
understand what
34,
you're saying, too.
then it's easy
To make
on the
it a bit more
computer to
interactive.
find page 34
Because
and they have it up so the people are
They're large
actually reading it
concepts,
as
we
the
don't
class is
hardly
reading.
On the YouTube guys.
try to get everyone on
hear
the
them, but they
same
will not
page
hear
to
them.
envision this. You know, I understand what
And we cannot hear
you're
that.
saying,
I mean, it's the
read passages. Maybe you can incorporate just
I think we can always-
certain passages, if you want, because that's
That's why we
the
need-
reading of it, you know?
Thank you very much. I look forward to coming next week.
Okay.
Yes, I'll see you then.
I'm glad I did a good job.
But like, I understand what you're saying as well. I like somehow what you did as well. You're basically wanting people to read the book.
I mean, it's pretty clear.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Ramon, are you of the opinion that we go around the room like, read the book?
I thought that's what we're going to do.
Oh, okay.
Everybody should have the book.
Marty.
They should be
Well, let me-
required to have the book. If you're training us, because I can't go forward and speak about this if I don't know about it.
Okay,
What do you want me to do? Half-assed? I can't do that.
So
prerequisite?
let me, I'm not gonna do the whole thing, but for the various important parts,
Before you take it out.
where I know where it's going.
See, the point is you're building a community. So once we leave out from around you, they just can't have photocopies. They need to be in the
So
book.
what's your opinion? You think there should be reading from the book?
No, I'm for everything that you did. This was good. You see, you made sure that you lectured.
And let
Then
your
the
guys, you
second
see,
half
give you
was
feedback.
fun.
And we do it
But
again.
a lot of times what I find problematic is people start and talk, and then everybody else gets into that thing. And before you know it, all the material goes out.
You're watching the guy and you read the slides.
I know what, you know what you need for that? That's what it says in the video conference. You know what it
I
does?
know you're an expert.
On the screen of the frame, you will see a picture of Yanni talking. and then you will see the slides.
I'm just a little, you know,
The last thing that happened,
you know.
But you have that camera, can you do anything on your?
I don't know, it's just.
you want to do it live. You want to do it live.
It's just some kind of.
Let's say you because
If they turn the
you don't make
wall,
any writing.
then they eventually,
Yeah.
You just interpret the slides. So that's why I was suggesting you take the slides
but
and
ever
you say
since
you page
then,
54.
I don't
If the slide is on the speaker.
You need actually to read it back and forth.
sometimes I
If you
don't
wanna,
know.
if you wanna maintain the attention.
And I have a water filter. It takes it away slightly.
Most of the guys,
I asked DEP, and he said no, he said, we don't have anything to do with that. What do you think?
So it's on.
when I go in the guy, I'll come back.
It seems like somehow.
Let's say you say something very funny, that's like that. I can't take any bullshit.
Somebody told me that, people has the.